Hello everybody and welcome to 5 Minute Classroom, the YouTube series where I talk rapid fire about a topic in education. This week we're going to be discussing disabilities in the general education classroom. So prepare your note-taking hand and that 0.25 times speed button, and let's jump right into it. Now it might come as a surprise, especially to you newer teachers, but in the 2019-2020 school year, around 14% of all general education students were receiving special education services under IDEA. That is 7.3 million students in the United States. What is IDEA, you might ask? Well, it's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act that guarantees free and appropriate education for all special education students qualified under the 13 categories of special education and disabilities, and it ensures that they learn in the least restrictive environment possible. You are required to abide by IDEA's laws, so give it a little Google if you think you might not know as much about IDEA as you should. Don't worry, I won't be mad if you click away, this stuff's important. Now back to the stats. The prevalence is 14%, so all of you math teachers might already have cogs turning in your heads thinking,
now wait a minute, that means that statistically it's extremely likely that I'll have students with disabilities in my general education classroom.
Well, Einstein, you'd be correct. Now you might not be a special education teacher, but most students with disabilities actually spend the vast majority of their time in general education classrooms. And because students with disabilities are so prominent in the GE classrooms, I wanted to discuss the top 3 disabilities that you'll probably encounter in the GE classroom and give you tips on each of the disability groups on how to help them learn. The number one most common disability that you're going to find in your general education classroom is specific learning disabilities, or SLDs for short. Some common SLDs include dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. These students might have trouble learning in specific content areas despite having adequate cognitive functioning. Many students with SLDs will have IEPs, individualized education plans, which lays out instructions on how you, the teacher, will have to provide accommodations and modifications for that student. You must follow the IEP. Read the IEP. Some tips for helping students with SLDs learn is to present information in multiple different ways, not just one, and to provide them with many options like using a learning menu. Another tip is to use visuals and other aids like graphic organizers and think alouds. Helpful links to learn more about those are going to be linked in the description. Next up is going to be speech and language impairments, or SLIs. Around 19% of students who are disabled fall into this category. Some common SLIs are articulation disorders, voice disorders, stuttering, and social communication disorders. These students demonstrate difficulties in exchanging and expressing knowledge, ideas, opinions, desires, and feelings. Many students with SLIs have IEPs, individualized education plans, that lays out how you, the teacher, will have to give them accommodations and modifications in their schooling. You must follow the IEP. Read the IEP. Some tips for helping students with SLIs learn is to use conversation-based learning, include wait time, and use a strategy called unconditional listening. Links to elaborate on these tips will also be found in the description below. The final disability group that I'm going to be discussing today is other health impairments, or OHIs. This group accounts for about 15% of students who have disabilities. Common OHIs include asthma, cerebral palsy, and epilepsy. These students typically have limited strength or alertness and might seem fatigued and lethargic in your classroom. Many students with OHIs have IEPs, individualized education plans, which lays out how you, the teacher, will have to provide accommodations and modifications in your classroom. And you must follow the IEP. So read the IEP. Sensing a theme here? Some tips for helping students with OHIs learn is to provide breaks throughout a lesson, incorporate manipulatives, and also to try out the flipped classroom model for a unit or two. Many additional resources for helping students with OHIs are going to be linked in the description below. It's also important to note that a lot of the tips discussed in this video are actually applicable to all students, not just students with disabilities. They work in many general education classrooms regardless of who is in them. So I highly encourage everybody watching this to give all of them a try at some point. Again, today we talked about students with specific learning disabilities, speech and language impairments, and other health impairments. There are many other kinds of disabilities that you're bound to find in your classroom, but I just wanted to touch on the 3 most common today. Go ahead and leave a comment on this video about what you might have learned from this video or any comments you might have for me. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to get notified on when I talk fast next. Other than that, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and read those IEPs.